What up, IB in the building, and we back for another video. Now I'm back with a team breakdown of the Oklahoma City Thunder. At the time of recording this video, the Thunder hold a 41-25 record, putting them at 6th in the Western Conference. Getting into their core players, we have to start with the point guard himself, Chris Paul. This year he's averaging 17.7 points per game, 6.8 assists, 5 rebounds, 1.6 steals on 61% true shooting. Now, a strength of Chris Paul, he has one of the best basketball IQs in NBA history. He is one of the smartest point guards to ever touch an NBA court. You see that in the eye test, and you can see that in the stats as well. The Oklahoma City Thunder have a 13.7 higher offensive rating with Chris Paul on the court. His passing is extraordinary. He always makes the right decision in terms of hitting the open man or getting the hockey assist that will set up the open man for the assist. Chris Paul, he's the point guard for a reason. He always makes the right pass. And that's evident in his entire career because he's been able to rack up at least 8 assists per game almost every year, especially during his prime, without turning the ball much. He's always had a high assist to turnover ratio, and this year is no different. This year his assist to turnover ratio is 3.1. So not only is he consistently hitting the right man and creating plays for his teammates, he's also taking care of the ball like he has been his entire career. Chris Paul has always been a great shot creator, especially in the mid-range. That's where he makes his money. Now, the thing with the mid-range shot today, it's getting a bit underused because people view it as inefficient. Now, it is an inefficient shot because if you're not hitting a mid-range shot at a high percentage, then you shouldn't be taking it. But if you are shooting the mid-range shot above 50%, that is an efficient two-pointer if you are an exceptional mid-range shooter, and Chris Paul definitely fits the bill. From 3 to 10 feet, he shoots 50.5%. From 10 to 16 feet, he shoots 52.8%. And from 16 feet to the three-point line, he shoots 52.3%. Chris Paul makes his living in the mid-range off of pick-and-roll scenarios where he consistently pulls up at that elbow. That's his patented shot. I've seen it his entire career. And he also finishes at the rim at an insane clip. His field goal percentage from 0 to 3 feet is 84.7%. Now that number is a bit skewed because obviously he's at a smaller stature, so he's not going to be able to take as many shots inside, and he knows that he's not going to be able to finish through contact as much as somebody that was bigger, but still, finishing 0 to 3 feet at 84.7%, that is ridiculous. Like, centers don't even have that 0 to 3 feet percentage. And, defense. Chris Paul has been a great defender his entire career. Even though he is undersized, he is 6'1" on a good day. He's a lockdown perimeter defender, though. He may not be the lockdown perimeter defender that he was in his prime, but he still is one of the better defending point guards in the league. I definitely want him on my team if I had to defend one shot at the end of the fourth quarter. He's also a disruptive defender, as he has always been. He's not leading the league in steals anymore like he was in his prime, but he's still getting 2.4 steals per 100 possessions. And he gets that through passing lane steals and on-ball rips. And another strength is his experience. He's been in the league for a minute, and he has a lot of playoff and just NBA experience in general that he can share with his team. Weaknesses for Chris Paul. Number one weakness is his size. Being 6 foot holds its disadvantages as well. In this league of switch everything, like teams are gravitating towards just switching everything on screens, Chris Paul can't really fit that bill. He's not the big point guard that can really provide a lot of versatility on the defensive side of the ball with switches. He has to fight through screens, so he can't switch, because if he switches onto a center, he has to intentionally foul to stop a bucket. Another weakness, his age. He's getting up there. He's not getting any younger. And his contract is a bit less than ideal. After this year, he'll have 2 years left on his contract, making $41 million next year, and then he'll have a $44 million player option that we know he would accept. You'd be a fool to turn down $44 million guaranteed. Moving on to the next player, it's kind of the young star that's ascending for this OKC franchise, SGA, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. This year he's averaging 19.3 points per game, 6 boards, and 3.3 assists on 56.7 true shooting percentage. Now, a strength of SGA is his shot creation ability. He's crafty and skilled. He's not overly athletic, so he has to kind of use his skill and craftiness to score on unorthodox two-point attempts. Only 24.5% of his 2s are assisted on, and only 56.3% of his 3s are assisted on. Like Chris Paul, SGA is perfectly capable of thriving in the mid-range as well. That's where he's most comfortable. He shoots 51.2% from 10 to 16 and 50% from 16 to the 3-point line. And he is adept at drawing fouls. He shoots about 5 free throw attempts per game. And he's got great size at 6'5", and that allows him to guard either backcourt position, point guard or shooting guard. And sometimes he has to guard small forwards because of Oklahoma City's 3-guard lineup that they go to at numerous points in the game. SGA is the small forward, or has to guard small forwards in that lineup. On the defensive side of the ball, because of his size, he's very disruptive. He gets about 1.6 steals per 100 and 1 block per 100 possessions. Moving on to weaknesses, SGA is he's an average passer. I think coming into the league, he was labeled as a point guard, but maybe, or more closer to what he actually was, he was labeled as a point guard that was really a shoot first point guard, not a natural passer. And that's evident in his assist to turnover ratio. He has a 1.7 assist to turnover ratio, and he's only getting 3.3 assists, but I think growing with Chris Paul, learning how to read pick and rolls, he'll be able to make better passes. He actually needs to improve his pass accuracy a bit too. I've seen him miss some lobs to Steven Adams in drop off or pick and roll lob opportunities. I've seen him miss, and I've seen him kind of be a bit errant in pocket passes off the pick and roll. So yeah, just improving his passing in general. Another weakness, I alluded to this already, but he's not your most explosive athlete. A lot of his scoring comes from his craftiness and his skill, so he's not going to really overwhelm you with athleticism, NBA level athleticism, so that kind of limits his ability to finish above the rim, and that also limits his lateral quickness because oftentimes he gets beat off the dribble by quicker guards. And his 3-point shooting, he's shooting about league average, only on a small amount of attempts per game. I think going further in his career, the 3-point shot will be a bit more of an emphasis of his game. Hopefully he can shoot about 5 attempts per game on 35, 36, 37%. Next on the list is Steven Adams, the long-term center for the Oklahoma City Thunder. This year he's putting up 11 points, 9.4 rebounds, 2.4 assists, and 1.1 blocks. Strength, Steven Adams is a good all-around defensive big man. He's very disruptive. Per 100 possessions, he gets 1.5 steals and 2 blocks. He's a good low-post defender. He's big. You're not really going to move him out the way. And he's a good help side defender, not because he's quick or anything. He's pretty light on his feet, even though he's like so big and clunky. He still moves pretty well, but it's mainly his defensive IQ and awareness that makes him a good help side defender. And he's not the best rim protector in terms of blocks, but he disrupts a lot of layup attempts because of his defensive IQ. And when he has to switch onto a guard, obviously we've seen clips of Steven Adams getting broken by Jamal Murray, but he's able to make the point guard work. It's not a guaranteed bucket when you get Steven Adams switched onto a guard. And proof that he is a smart defender, he only gets 1.9 fouls per game. Most of the time your starting centers are going to get an upwards of 3 fouls per game, but Steven Adams, he's just a smart defender. He doesn't make silly, stupid fouls. He doesn't get caught off balance too much. In terms of rebounding, his rebounding numbers might not be of the best in the league when you look at Drummond and Hassan Whiteside, but he's great at boxing out, and that was kind of why Russell Westbrook was able to get the rebound and run in transition when he was on OKC. It's because Steven Adams was doing the dirty work and boxing out. He's a great offensive rebounder though. He is one of the better offensive rebounders in the league. I think he's top 10 actually. He's a great screen center. Again, Steven Adams, one of the strongest players in the league. In terms of finishing, he finishes at a high clip, 74.7% from 0 to 3 feet. He has a solid low post game. Obviously he's not going to be somebody you consistently throw the ball down, but when he does get a good positioning inside the paint and takes a 2-dribble post hook, post flip shot, he does convert that at a decent clip. Again, he's not going to be a go-to low post option, but he does take advantage of his switch as well, and he's able to score on centers in the low post from time to time. He's great in pick and rolls, mainly because of his ability to set screens, and he gets a lot of looks scoring inside off of lobs and drop-off passes from Chris Paul and SGA. Weaknesses, we know Steven Adams provides 0 spacing. He's not a shooter, never been. I don't think he ever really will be, even though he drained a corner 3 in the preseason, I remember. No, he's just not a shooter like that. He's also not a good free throw shooter, only shoots 58.5% from the free throw line. And he's not a great offensive weapon. Like I said, he's just solid. He can give you a post touch from time to time. And his contract is a bit less than ideal, $27 million for the production of Steven Adams. That's not really his money that he's getting, isn't really matching his production. But after this year, he only has one more year making that much money, so it's not that big of a deal. Plus, OKC's not really a free agency destination, so it really doesn't hurt them that much, to be honest. Next core player of the team is Danilo Gallinari. I often call him the Italian KD. This year he's averaging 19 points per game, 5.5 rebounds on 61.2 true shooting percentage. The strengths for Danilo, he's a sharpshooter. Basically 41% from the 3-point line on 7.3 attempts. That man is a sharpshooter. 54.1% of all of his field goals come from the 3-point line. He's also a good shot creator. He shoots 47.1% from 16 to 3 feet, and he's a good finisher, converting about 64.3% from 0 to 3 feet. Gallo being an offensive weapon is supported by the advanced metrics. OKC has a 14.3 better offensive rating with Gallo on the court. So yeah, all of Gallo's strengths come from his shooting ability and scoring ability. We move into weaknesses, and his weakness really is on defense. He gets cooked on the perimeter. He came into the league as a small forward. He was getting cooked. Now in this league where we play small ball and we play traditional small forwards at the power forward position, he has to play power forward because of his ability to get exploited on the perimeter. He's okay playing low post defense. Like I said, he doesn't really have to play low post defense because we play a lot of small ball forwards in today's NBA. But if you were to go up against a Kristaps Porzingis or an Anthony Davis or a Giannis Antetokounmpo at the power forward position, one-on-one, Gallo stands no chance. OKC has a 9-point lower or worse defensive rating with Gallo on the court. And yeah, Gallo's just never really been a plus on the defensive side of the ball. And all of his strengths are scoring, like I said. Weaknesses, defense. He doesn't really provide that much playmaking for you. He'll get you like 2 assists per game, but he's not a great playmaker in terms of passes. And then I just want to talk about some of the, maybe not your core members of the team, but maybe some role players of the Oklahoma City team. The number one guy I want to talk about is Luguentz Dort. Now, he is a rookie, if I'm not mistaken, or he may be a second year. He's either a rookie player or a second year player, about 6'4", 6'5", and he's a guard that plays hard on the defensive side of the ball. I think he came on to, or he was on the Thunder from the start of the season, but he really started to get minutes towards the middle of the season, and his defensive prowess is really what jumped out to me. He was routinely in passing lanes, getting some on-ball steals from time to time, which allowed him to get a lot of fast break buckets. Yeah, Luguentz Dort is a player that plays hard and plays hard on the defensive side of the ball. He'll actually crash the glass a bit. He's just a young, hungry player that really plays hard and makes his money on the defensive side of the ball. So in the future, his future in this league and maybe on this team, if he can just develop that 3-point shot and be a 3-and-D guard that will clamp up the number one player on the perimeter, especially point guard or shooting guard, he could really have a valuable place in this league. Hopefully he can get that 3-point shot down, because I've seen he can handle the ball a bit too. He can handle it in pick and roll situations. So yeah, I really like Luguentz Dort game. Hopefully he can add that 3-ball to his arsenal. I also want to talk about Andre Roberson. He's finally back. I saw him in the restart game, and he was actually making some clutch corner threes, believe it or not. That adds a lot more defense to this Thunder team. When I talk about Andre Roberson, I really want to see a lot more of him playing at the power forward position. Maybe he can be a small ball 3-and-D power forward going forward in today's NBA, because Roberson's been injured for these past 2 years, and the exaggerated influx of small ball 3-and-D power forwards started 2 years ago when Roberson got injured. Before he got injured, when he was playing with KD and Russ and Ibaka and them, he was really playing shooting guard and small forward. Now, I think in today's league, this is the perfect time for him to come back and just start playing that small ball 4 role. And the final, I guess technically role player, Dennis Schroeder. He really could be a core member of this team, but I don't really want to talk about him that much. But Dennis Schroeder, in my opinion, is the 6th man of the year. I think he is a big reason why Oklahoma City is where they are in the West. Being 6th in the West is an incredible accomplishment, especially losing Paul George and Russell Westbrook. Dennis Schroeder really started to embrace the 6th-man role last year coming from Atlanta, and it's been something that he can thrive in, honestly. This year he's averaging 19 points, 4 rebounds, and 4 assists on 47% from the field and 38% from 3. Before he went to Oklahoma City last year, when he was in Atlanta backing up Jeff Teague, and then when Jeff Teague left, he went into the starting lineup. He was really a mid-range scoring and in point guard that could shoot the 3 from time to time. He really didn't embrace that 3-point shot, and he didn't really shoot it at that high of a clip. But now this year, he's shooting 5 threes a game, a career high, and he's shooting a career high in percentage at 38%. So he's had a career high in 3-point percentage and also a career high in 3 points attempted per game. And he also has a career high in field goal percentage. So this is just an all-around offensive career high year for Dennis Schroeder. And yeah, like I said, Dennis Schroeder is the 6th man of the year. In my opinion, I think you compare him to Montrezl Harrell and Lou Williams on that Clippers team. I think you got to give it to Dennis Schroeder because he's not playing with the Montrezl Harrell like Lou Williams. He's playing with another top tier 6th man. Dennis Schroeder is literally carrying that second unit, and that's kind of the reason why I would give him the 6th man of the year. I also think if you take Lou Williams away from the Clippers team, I think they're still a top 4 team in the West. At least I think they'd still be a 3 or 2 seed. I think they'd find a way. But I think if you took Dennis Schroeder from Oklahoma City Thunder, their offense off the bench, their bench scoring would probably be one of the worst in the league, and they probably struggle getting into the playoffs. I really think Dennis Schroeder has had that type of impact on Oklahoma City this year. Now, getting into direction for the Oklahoma City Thunder, it's complicated, alright? They're a good team in the West. Like I said, they're a 6th seed in the West above teams like Dallas. So they are competing. They're not contending. They're not a real championship contender. They are competing with an asterisk next to competing, because they have a roster full of good to great veterans and Danilo Gallinari, Chris Paul, Steven Adams, Dennis Schroeder. They have good role players, young and old. Terrence Ferguson, I didn't even talk about. Luguentz Dort, Andre Roberson coming back. They also have a young, talented player, SGA, who already has playoff experience. He was on that Clippers team that played the Warriors in the first round, and he's going to garner more playoff experience this year because OKC is definitely making the playoffs. But, like I said, the team currently constructed is not a title contender, and if they just move forward with this team, they don't really have a superstar player to build around. Now you might be screaming at me saying Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, but in my opinion, he doesn't really have that type of potential. Though, they do have hella draft picks. Let's just go through the draft picks that they have. They have so many draft assets for these next 5 years, it's ridiculous. That gives them a lot of flexibility for what they could do moving forward. These are a couple routes that they can go down. Maybe they build through the draft. They use all of their picks and hope that they find a diamond in the rough. If they just keep those picks after picks after picks, they're bound to hit on one, right? That could be a philosophy that they employ. Or they could use all of their draft capital to trade for a number 1 pick. Let's say 1 year, I don't know, there's a point guard that is the number 1 draft pick by far, the number 1 player to go in my draft by far. And let's say for some reason the Grizzlies have that pick. Obviously the Grizzlies don't need a number 1 point guard. They already have Ja Morant. They may be likely to want to trade that pick away to get more assets for the future. Then boom, there goes your superstar caliber point guard for the future right there that can play next to SGA. That's just a hypothetical. You can apply that to different teams in different positions, but that's just another way of rebuilding that the Oklahoma City Thunder and Sam Presti can really employ. Or they could kind of keep the core of their team and use all of their draft picks to trade for a disgruntled superstar that we see over and over again. The thing with Oklahoma City is they have these aging win-now veterans in Chris Paul, Gallinari, and Adams. Chris Paul is really starting to get up there in age. He doesn't have a ring. Will Chris Paul be patient enough to wait for Oklahoma City to become a real title contender? Will OKC want to trade him to a contender while he still has trade value, and maybe they want to garner more draft picks? Another path could be maybe they finally embrace a tank. Maybe they finally do trade Chris Paul, let Danilo Gallinari walk, or sign and trade him for more draft capital. Maybe they trade Steven Adams. Maybe they go into full rebuild mode. If it were me, what I would do, I probably wouldn't want to go into full tank mode, but I wouldn't be opposed to taking a step back. And what I mean by that is letting Gallinari walk in free agency or doing a sign and trade, and embracing the development of Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, taking the reins off of him, letting him go out there and ball and get some experience as that #1 guy and see if he can really do that efficiently. I would also try to keep Chris Paul. Like, he's basically the greatest player to have as a mentor for a young star guard. And there's already a dynamic between CP3 and SGA. They mess with each other. SGA likes CP3. CP3 really views SGA as his mentee. I think that's a good dynamic, and that's something I would want to keep if I were a GM. I would try to bring Adams back on a very team-friendly contract, maybe like $15 million per year for the next 4 or 5 years. And then, yeah, I would keep like that core of the team, maybe try to build on what I have with the young players I already have on my team, like Lou Dort, Darius Bazley, Terrence Ferguson, try to develop them into long-term bench pieces. The assets that I do garner, I would try to trade up to get a superstar potential talent, maybe in the top 5 in the loaded 2021 draft class. That's a much better draft class than the 2020 draft class. There's a lot of talent that you can hit on in that draft class. So I would try to use the assets that OKC has to try and get a high pick in that 2021 draft. And they don't even have to use all of their assets because they have so many. And after trading for that superstar potential talent in the 2021 draft, you add him to your team, you kind of embrace him, maybe your team improves, and you still have draft assets to maybe trade for a star player when that star player becomes available on the trade market. To conclude, the Oklahoma City Thunder are one of the more interesting teams in the league based off of their position, their team personnel, and it's going to be really interesting to see how Sam Presti operates this team over the next 3 years, what direction, what path they want to go down. That's gonna do it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, leave a like, and if you're new here, subscribe. I would greatly appreciate it. Anyways, like I was saying, thanks for watching. It's been your boy IB. I'll catch y'all later. Peace.